Welcome back to our A to Z examination of every alien and human in the original London Cantina. We last left off in the letter N, and also, before we begin, Cabe is a girl. Niche. This Rhodian is seen at the very beginning of the Cantina scene, and it appears he is sitting with Dan Sporen, but he's actually at a table in front of him. This also happens to be the Rhodian who is sitting with Jenny. If you look carefully at this photo, you will see that he is not wearing the standard issue orange Rhodian vest. He does regain it somehow for the Jabba the Hutt scene. What's more, Paul Blake indicated to this author that at one point he was the one sitting at Jenny's table. Further proof that there was a lot of moving around in the Cantina over those days of filming. In our Greedo entry, it was mentioned that one costume was used in Return of the Jedi as the background character Beto. But it should be noted that a second costume also appeared in Jabba's palace, as a Rhodian named Revid Jassa. Onelco. The second of these aliens in the Cantina is a little slimmer than his counterpart, Athelo, and is discernible by the scarf or ascot that he wears. Originally named Solamahal, a feature in Star Wars Insider number 130 changed this alien's name back to Onelco, and established that the other is a different alien entirely, who has completely different hair anyway. Ront Birnlu. All three pirates are tricky to spot in the Cantina, but they are there. For this big guy, just look for the beard. You can better see their costumes away from the crowd in the Jabba scene. Formerly called Davelin Shmi by fans, this pirate was given his name at Star Wars Celebration in 2017 from a combination of the actor's name with fan Brian Lewis. Regesk. We really only get one glimpse of this creature in the Cantina, sitting between a Jawa and Zutton the Snaggletooth. Then, not too long after that, a tall rat creature is seen walking the Mos Eisley streets. Decipher gave this second one the name of Nevar Yalnal, but there's no proof that it's not also Regesk, other than some fans think that the second one is too tall. Once again, the actor for the street scenes could be a different person entirely. Rykar Rygerd. Best I can do. Standing at the front of the bar beside Nabrin Leeds is this little guy, who is wearing a vest with a red collar or possibly a hood over it. At some point, a short scene of him encountering a super tall creature with stilt legs in a Mos Eisley alleyway was going to be used for comic relief. Instead, the outtake appeared in the introduction to the Star Wars Holiday Special's Cantina scene. Interestingly, this scene would have kept going with our friend pulling a tiny gun on the towering attacker, as this rare production slide shows. Liseb Serlin. In the chart made by John Mallow, it looked like this alien would have a brain-like head. In Stuart Freeborn's concept art, it looked like she would have lots of facial tattoos or markings, and that a mohawk was the hairstyle of choice at one point. In the end, this pink lady ended up with unusual braids over a large egghead. This seemed to be one of those characters that would never become an action figure in a million years, but it happened. Spaceman number 2. This and Spaceman number 1, Dan Sporen, are the two easiest spacemen in the Cantina to see. He wears a yellow Windac pressure suit, in fact, the same one that will become the costume for the bounty hunter Bosk. This suit was on hand at the studio and was from the 1964 film First Men in the Moon. It had also appeared in an episode of the Doctor Who story The 10th Planet. It's possible that the helmet is original as well, but it's hard to tell with what we can see. Spaceman number 3 and Spaceman number 4. The last two spacemen are identically dressed, so where did their spacesuits come from? There was a fan theory that each spaceman's costume was purposefully constructed to pay tribute to vintage science fiction TV shows or movies, but this isn't the case. One of the films often suggested is George Pal's Destination Moon. As you can see, the spacesuits from that film are very unique, and even if you could change their color, you couldn't disguise the oversized accordion folds at the knees and elbows. There aren't any spacesuits in the Cantina that match these. Another title thrown around is Lost in Space, and researching that trail yielded some interesting findings. This is Penny Robinson's suit from the show. Even though most photos of our spacemen are in black and white, you can sometimes make out the distinctive red piping that these suits had if you look closely. This photo is color-coded and makes distinguishing the 4 spacemen much easier, and is clear enough that you can make out the red piping on spaceman number 3's sleeve. What would be interesting to know is how these suits ended up at Elstree. The helmets, with their large bubble-like viewers, were from Escape from the Planet of the Apes. As to the actors, unfortunately all we know is that one of them was named Chris Bunn. Merc Sunlet. This human is easiest to see in the cantina after the fight with Walrus Man and Dr. Evazan. He is one of the baffled onlookers behind Ben Kenobi. That is all. Takil. Like many freeborn aliens, there is a pair of these in the cantina. They are nearly identical in their clothes, and even in their hunched backs, but are distinguishable by their hair. Takil has a full head of curly hair, while Zutton, who we will see shortly, does not. Takil can also be seen limping along the streets of Mos Eisley. Amazingly, his mask was featured in a November 1977 Vogue magazine pictorial on, of all things, fur? Kenner's famous blue snaggletooth was, as you probably know, not only a famous mistake, but a Sears exclusive. The red snaggletooth followed, but that figure was probably intended to be the snaggletooth from the Star Wars Holiday Special, who was named Zutmore in the show. Hasbro has made 3 since the late 1990s. One was specifically named Takil in a 3-pack. One new version of the blue snaggletooth as a joke in a notoriously difficult-to-find Kmart exclusive 3-pack, and a splendid but generically named Snaggletooth in a 3-pack exclusive to Target. Thuku. Thuku is said to be the Rhodian walking the streets of Mos Eisley that we see shortly after Greedo's death, which confused many a small child at the time, this author included. All 3 Martian costumes made a return appearance as part of Jabba's gang for the cutscene later reinstated for the special edition. Almost immediately after Greedo is killed, said Paul Blake, you see another one that looks just like me. I said, George, some people are going to find it confusing, and he said, it's no matter, all Rhodians look alike. The Tonica Sisters. No Cantina diorama would be complete without them, but for years it was said that Hasbro would never be able to produce action figures of them. Why is this? Angela Staines revealed in a 2017 podcast interview that she had never signed away her likeness rights, making her a rarity among Star Wars actors. Add to that the fact that her husband wrote Lucasfilm a very angry letter over the use of the Tonica sisters' image on a Decipher CCG game card in 1995, and the chances were not looking good. However, all of this is apparently now resolved, as fans backing the HasLab Cantina playset have a chance to own the first ever Tonica sisters action figures. At the time of this video, it's more than half backed, so stay tuned. Tzivzit. Great, another bug name. Zizvit, which I imagine is supposed to be bzzzt. Another unique alien from Stuart Freeborn's team, this character is much easier to see in the original rough cut of the Cantina scene. However, he is still in the final film if you know where to look. When the Sand Troopers first enter the Cantina and are gathering information, he is one of the aliens being questioned, although I can't imagine how that would work. Today, the original mask resides in the collection of Tom Spina. Unknown Patrons, number 1 and 2. Now we begin a special category, the Unknowns group. In some of the black and white wide shots that exist of the Cantina set, there are a handful of people who are never seen again. They are usually in the farthest, darkest corners of the photos and are barely visible. So, who are they? Here are the possibilities as I see it. Number 1. Extras that were only there for certain days of filming. This theory probably doesn't hold water, as Lucas wanted a crowded Cantina from the start, and the more extras you dismiss, the more your shots won't match up later. Number 2. Existing actors who have removed their masks or helmets. This is at least possible, especially if they are costumes we can't get a very good look at to begin with. Number 3. Members of the crew or visitors. This is a better possibility, especially if the photos were done between takes. Here we have 2 men that are seen standing together, so we will look at them at the same time. They are standing in the back leftmost corner of the room, just in front of the doorway to that back room that we discussed in Chapter 3. Here is a full shot of the man on the left who looks like he is wearing a coat with a hood. Neither of these guys are the unnamed hiding man that we will see in a little while either, because he is noticeable in these photos. What do you think, folks at home? Unknown woman. Going back to our color-coded spaceman photo from earlier, this woman is seen right in the middle of them. She is sitting at the table with spaceman number 2 in the yellow flight suit and talking to Lisa Serlin. It is definitely not Jenny, because Jenny is in the same photo. The website Star Wars Aficionado published this photo, which is one of Ann Skinner's on-set continuity photos. Even though it is a little washed out, we can now see that this woman has earrings and a shawl, and that she is definitely a unique Cantina patron. Let's zoom in and increase the contrast, which is about as good as we're going to get. This photo is also notable because it shows us the faces for 2 of the spacemen. Unnamed bureaucrat or farmer, number 1. We have already identified the 2 bureaucrats who were mentioned in production notes, but we need a way to refer to these next 2 unknowns. Admittedly, they could be just about anything. This bald man sits near the front of the cantina and can be easily seen at the left side of the screen as Han Solo is leaving. Unnamed bureaucrat or farmer, number 2. This second unknown man has his back turned in every single photo he appears in, where he is actually talking to unknown patrons 1 and 2 that we saw a minute ago. From our viewpoint, his outfit looks very much like the uniform of an Imperial officer, as was pointed out in our Chapter 1 video. All I can say for certain is that he's not either one of these guys, because they are present in the same photos that he is in. Unnamed star pilot. This man sits prominently with Deb Noley at the front of the cantina. It would make sense that he is one of the star pilots, but admittedly, he could also be almost anything. He wears one of the cool British racing jackets like Ponda Baba and Yurka Mig. Unnamed hiding man. An article on the official website several years ago pointed this poor guy out, who apparently just does not want to be seen. He's located on the left side of the bar, crammed behind the giant pirate Ront Brindlew and the wall. His dark, high-parted hair is sometimes all you can see. He definitely isn't one of the unknown patrons we have discussed either, because he can be seen in those same photos. Whoever he is, he needs to fire his agent. Wyoslia, or Wyoslia, or Wyosley, one of those. You have to admit, this is either the bravest or the stupidest alien design of all time. As it turns out, we do have somebody to blame for it, and it's George Lucas. In all the drafts of the script, including the final, released to the public published version, Luke's primary attacker at the bar is, quote, a large, multiple-eyed creature who instigates the fight. At some point in the proceedings of production, Walrus Man was invented, and it was decided that he filled this role much better, as he looked much more aggressive and, well, not this. So Lucas came up with the idea, but who is to blame for the design of this alien? Well, that was George too. Nick Maley, who was part of the Stuart Freeborn team, said, George came in with a drawing of a multi-eyed blob creature that he'd done while sitting in the airport, and yeah, we built it, and we all hated it. And so this alien was relegated to the role of land speeder dealer instead, and with the hood up, she looks kind of mysterious in the film. However, she is hard to find in the cantina unless you were watching the Lost Cut version. In 2009, Hasbro amazingly gave us an action figure of this alien. Now, there has long been a rumor that early versions were packaged with a lightsaber, and this is not exactly true. Instead, it was in some Hasbro production photography for that wave of figures, where she is pictured holding a blue lightsaber. Apparently somebody over there thought this alien was part of the Geonosis arena battle or something. The bartender. Incidentally, what is the correct pronunciation of the bartender's name? Another client of the Ugly Agency, actor Ted Burnett, was well cast as the surly bartender of the cantina. We do not get to hear his real voice in the movie, but the dubbed one does work pretty well. It was many years before an action figure of this character was made, even though he is one of the most integral and necessary figures to any cantina. And when the Star Wars Holiday Special came out, we learned that the cantina had not one, but 2 bartenders, the other being B. Arthur? We'll get to that in Chapter 9. Gela Yeens. The third of Jabba the Hutt's henchmen stands near the back of the left side of the bar. He also moves around the cantina quite a bit. He has distinctive sideburns, wears a hat with goggles, and sports a tan vest. Zutton. This poor guy is not only a hunchback, but his male-pattern baldness is out of control. It does make him easy to identify, though. One of the easiest places to see him is when Han leaves the cantina. Zutton sits at a table with Mosep. One of the two snaggletooth masks was overhauled to become Zutmore in the Star Wars Holiday Special, and then became a background alien in Cloud City, and then became a background character in Jabba's palace named Gizem. It seems like the second original snaggletooth mask has disappeared. Well, that completes the original population of the Cantina, so that wraps it up, right? Nope. Hold on to your drinks. It's about to get a lot more crowded.